The next point is hoping in the God of grace, and I want to just read this to you real quickly in the last couple minutes. In their book, Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, Paul Brand and Philip Yancey quote from the novelist Frederick Buechner, who writes, "Who could have predicted that God," now listen to this list, "that God would choose not Esau, the honest and reliable outdoorsman, but Jacob, the trickster and heel? That God would put his finger on Noah, who hit the bottle? That God would pick Moses, who was trying to beat the rap in Midian for bringing a man in Egypt, or for killing a man in Egypt, and if it weren't for the honor of the thing, he'd just as soon let Aaron go back and face the music, or the prophets, who were a ragged lot, mad hatters, all of them." The exception seems to be the rule with God. The first humans God created went out and did the only thing God asked him not to do. The man he chose to head his new nation, known as God's people, tried to pawn his wife off on an unsuspecting Pharaoh. And the wife herself, when the ripe old age of 91, was told by God that she would deliver a son that he'd promised her, she broke into a rasping laughter in God's face. Rahab, a harlot, became revered for her great faith, and Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, went out of his way to break every proverb he so astutely composed. And even after Jesus came the pattern and continued, two disciples who did the most to spread the word after his departure, John and Peter, were the two he had to rebuke almost all the time for squabbling and muddle-headedness. The Apostle Paul, who wrote more books than any other biblical writer, was selected for the task while kicking up the dust, whirling from town to town, sniffing out Christians to torture them. Jesus had the nerve, trusting the high-minded ideals of love and unity to such a group as that. Bottom of the page. How wonderful that God is more gracious than men. God never excuses disobedience, unfaithfulness, or any other sin. He will forgive every sin that is placed under the atoning death of His Son, Jesus Christ. What can wash away my sins? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Jesus paid it all. But He, regardless of our position, prestige, or position, gives us no advantage with Him. The lack of those things gives no disadvantage. As Peter learned only after much resistance, the idea, God is not one to show partiality. Letter F, the short book of Obadiah, presents a powerful message. One who responds in obedience to the grace of God has everything to gain, but a person who spurns His grace in pride has everything to lose. Now the conclusion. There is this to add. It is true that the sin of Edom, long indulged, worked itself into the very character of the people and therefore inevitably flowed on into history. But that same flow of history also brought one who lived by an entirely different standard. Listen to this. By the way, this is from, where did I find this? This is from a little tract written by the American Board of Missions to the Jews in 1961. And listen to what it says. There was a day in history when two kings confronted one another for the first time. One was an earthly king. He sat that day at the pinnacle of power. His name, Herod Antipas. The motto of his reign was, "What will it profit me?" The other king was Jesus. He was the King of Kings, one who according to the flesh was the natural heir to David's throne, and who according to his divine nature was supreme king over all the kings of the earth. But he didn't look like a king. He stood in humble clothing. He had been rejected. Herod said, "What does it profit me?" Jesus said, "What can I do that will be the greatest possible benefit to my brethren?" God vindicated Jesus. Jesus went to the cross. He died. But His death was followed by a resurrection, and today He lives to enable those who believe on Him to behave as He did and bring a true supernatural brotherhood to this world. For his part, Herod went on to the revelry that he enjoyed, but soon was banished to Lyon, France, where he died in misery. This is a choice before you, to go Herod's way or Jesus' way. We can't do both. Jesus' way is the way of the cross. Satan says, "Spare thyself.